Revenge films.
At my workplace, we were all getting along, and I didn't have any complaints about my work, except I had a nightmare boss. His name was Burke, and we all hated him. He was arrogant and didn't listen to anybody. He didn't pay attention to anything others told him, but later he would be angry, saying he never heard that. It was always us who got in trouble. But he was still our boss, and we couldn't confront him directly. Knowing that, he behaved as he liked. At that time, I was working on some documents that Burke assigned me. It was for a big project, but there was still time before the deadline, so I made a schedule for myself to work on it to improve with details. But one day, Burke told me to submit it abruptly. I told him that there were days until the deadline and that it hadn't been completed yet. "Shut up! The meeting is today and I need it!" "Excuse me? I don't understand. Are you saying the meeting is today?" Nobody heard that. Had I known it, I could have finished it by today. He seemed to misunderstand the date. It was his fault, but he yelled at me with rage. "How come it's not ready? You're useless! What have you been doing every day?" Right back at ya. He never listened to anybody and played games on the phone at his desk, or when he went out, he would go to a cafe to read comic books. I also heard he stole the credibility of other people's work. I was angry at him, but the documents were not ready anyway. But he just grabbed the unfinished materials, thinking it would be better than nothing, and headed to the conference room. An hour later, he came back and threw the unfinished materials at me. "This is garbage! How dare you embarrass me like that in front of everybody? They also told me to postpone the contract. How are you going to make up for it? Answer me!" "But like I said, the deadline was days away. I was working on it with more details." "Don't you talk back to me, you useless worker! Be prepared, because I'll be carefully considering your punishment!" Then he downgraded my bonus rating to the lowest D just days later. I was upset and furious, of course, but he had the authority to do this, and there was nothing I could do about it. But I had someone who listened and comforted me. It was my fiancée, Nina. Nina and I have been together for 2 years, and we were getting ready for our wedding. We had meetings with the wedding planner several times by then. Nina helped me to relieve a lot of stress at work, namely Burke's harassment. I didn't have a good boss, but I got a great partner. So even though things were bad at work, I was always happy at home. And we happily and safely had our wedding despite a minor disturbance. The Monday after the wedding, Burke came to my desk with a grin on his face. "I canceled your wedding! You must have been miserable and embarrassed! Serves you right!" "Our wedding is over, but so is your life here." "What? I ruined your wedding!" The cancellation that he was talking about was a minor disturbance with our wedding. A week before our scheduled wedding, the venue staff called Nina to confirm the cancellation. I was busy with work, so Nina was basically communicating with the planner. But the call was from a man, and the planner wasn't familiar with the caller's voice, so she called Nina to double-check. Of course, we didn't make that call, so we told them about it and carried on as scheduled. And we had a great wedding day. But we couldn't figure out the caller except that it was a man, and Nina was afraid. But I vaguely suspected Burke. I talked about my upcoming wedding with them at work, and I didn't invite Burke, but he could easily ask them about the date. Now he knows that we had our wedding safely. He seemed dissatisfied, but questioned me about what I said to him, that his life's done. I didn't say anything then, but as he was leaving for the day, the CEO's secretary called Burke and me into his office. He had no idea he was called, but once we stepped in his office, it became clear. "You! How dare you try to ruin my niece's wedding? Your niece? I don't know what you're referring to, sir. Burke panicked when he heard it was the CEO's niece. Then the CEO made it clear. Nina was the niece of the CEO, and she chose the wedding venue, and I told him that it was almost canceled. The venue was pretty sought after and booked up for many months, but Nina's father asked the CEO for his connection so we could book it. And Burke canceled that casually. Since then, the CEO himself was looking for the culprit who was trying to ruin his niece's wedding. Then the culprit revealed himself voluntarily. Burke became pale while listening to the CEO's story and made an excuse, saying, "It's not what you think." But when she found out someone was trying to cancel our wedding, she was really shocked and scared, thinking someone was trying to break us up. So of course I was angry too. The CEO was the same, so when he found out the culprit was inside the company and in front of him, he was infuriated and fired him on the spot, saying that he didn't want anyone who intentionally tried to damage other people's happiness. He attempted to ruin my wedding and made me miserable, and didn't imagine it would come right back to haunt him and get him fired. He panicked and begged me to help him out. Burke asked me why I didn't tell him I was the family of the CEO, but I told all the other people in the company whom I invited to our wedding, and she was not a daughter but a niece, and I didn't see the need to announce that. And I had no intention of forgiving him for what he did, so I just ignored him. Later, it became open that Burke had purposely lowered my bonus rank and blamed somebody else for his mistake, and I was evaluated properly. Burke was married, but he was the same himself at home. As he lost his job, his wife got fed up with him and left him to divorce. He was also sued for moral harassment by his wife, but he deserved it when he tried to ruin somebody else's wedding. Now he's lost his job, money, and family and was left to live alone somehow, but I can only say justice was served.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.